There's one guy in the back. Can you hear me in the back? Hopefully he can hear me in the back. Okay. I have no idea how Bill is going to want to be set up. First of all, once again, here we are at the Wonderful Pizza Shop Collective. I would like to take this opportunity to say thank you for everybody for turning out this evening. Yay! I don't know. See, we started this in December, and we're now we're now 8 months into it. If we keep this up, we might actually make a year. But before we get started, there's a few things. Yeah, we hope. Before we get started with Bill and everybody else, there are a few things I want to pass along. First of all, you will notice that there are T-shirts and collars and stuff over there. Those have been brought over by our wonderful friends from Dominican Factions who are over there. And I'm going to pick the fact that I really like their stuff to begin with, but also those of you who were at the Dreaming Show, they contributed. I don't know, how many collars did you bring?
I don't recall the number, but at the end of the day, we turned over the St. Monica House about $150.
Yeah, they basically came in with a whole bunch of leather collars and such and said, "Hi, we're going to sell these." And we said, "Okay, how much are you giving to charity?" And they said, "All of it." And we said, "You rule, please, work with us more often." And since then, we have gotten to know each other a lot better. I discovered that Barry and Bill Lockwood have been friends since high school. And somehow they seem like an interesting couple together. I want to see more of them, in the same space. And my video camera.
Yeah. Just don't put that crappy nice filter lens on.
Oh, yes. I keep forgetting that we actually have two microphones on stage. We have this microphone right here for the audience, and then we have this microphone right here for the internet. The other thing that I want to talk about is our dear friend Estanoche, whose real name is Jody, was going to be our opener for this evening. Sadly, she was on her way home and she collapsed. Like collapsed. Somebody was kind enough to give her a bottle of Gatorade and a ride home level of collapsed. So first of all, Jody, hopefully you're watching. Hopefully you're also watching in a very nice, cool, relaxed sort of place. So have a grand old time. We'll carry the show tonight. We're gonna have a great time. And be sure to send the critique. I know you will. The other element to consider is that we have a red cup over there. And that red cup is going to be for donations. And what we're going to do is I think we're going to end up splitting it between two different groups. First, we have a fund. There's a fund for the firefighters out in Colorado, so that way they can help to recoup some of the amazing amount of expense they've had for equipment and overtime and all the stuff that they've had to do. We're also working up an actual proper benefit show for them that we're going to try for August. When we have some information, we'll pass that along to you. And also, some of the money we're going to just kind of kick back to Estanoche/Jody to help her with her medical expenses because she's going to the doctor. And her place of employment does not have what you would call the greatest health care. So after you've had something to eat, after you've had something to drink, if you happen to find a spare bill in your pocket, please feel free to drop it into... If you happen to have spare currency in your pocket, please feel free to drop it in there. Then carry him, but I want to point out that we refer to Bill's wife as she who must be obeyed for a fucking reason. Woman has laser eyes like you wouldn't believe.
Exactly.
Let me see, I'm trying to think what other stuff. Oh, one other thing. We have the show this week, and then in an amazing thing of somewhat poor timing, we have another show next week on Monday, and that will be at the Slowdown. And so if you have Monday free, come on down. It'll be opening we'll be having the shows. The doors open at 7. The show will start at 8. And we're going to be going fucking mad as we usually do. So come on down and have a grand old time.
We have a show the following week as well.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Next Friday.
Yep. And then we have a show on the Friday of the 27th where we will be appearing at Ozfest. Not Ozfest, but Ozfest. It's the Omaha Science Fiction Fandom Convention. You got some more, Mikey?
We're going out at midnight, so we'll be very fucking entertaining.
Yeah, it'll be one of those times where we're going to be walking up on stage and it'll just be like, see, I could say hello, but how about I just open with fuck? And that'll just be like, the opener, and then we'll get weirder from there. Well, more so than usual. We'll have the trank gun ready for Mike. How's that?
And Will Ross will be in town, so
Yeah, that reminds me, Will Ross and Travis Spearman will be there for that show, so if you've missed them, come on down and check them out, because God knows I've missed Travis since he's left Ed, we always miss Will, so. Hi, Will, are you watching?
Will like I miss herpes.
Well, I miss Will, but my aim's improving, so dude, if you're out there. And I think I've covered all of our basics right now, haven't I? Okay, so with that, we have a brand new performer. Because of the fact that Jody couldn't make it, I was desperately calling everybody because I talked to all the samurai before the show, and we were able to work up 5 for the performance, and then Jody dropped out. So that dropped us to 4, so that either meant that you had to put up with really, really long sets from all of us. And I don't know how many people here have heard me tell the Berlin story before, but I'm sure that some of you are fucking sick of it by now. And I might do it anyway. And so I called up my dear friend Bill Lockwood. Actually, I messaged Bill 3 different ways to Sunday and said, Bill, you remember that story you told me a long time ago? The second time we met? The one that for whatever reason, the next day I had to go to the hospital with pulled stomach muscles? Could you get up and do that on stage? And Bill said, sure, I can do that. So now that I have dug Bill a hole, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Bill Lockwood.
Now this might be a bit of a stretch because I'm normally a paragon of virtue and care and you know, kind of a prude, but you know, I won't. Yes, and I might. No, I'm absolutely not a pathological liar either. So. This story is a cautionary tale. It's a bit of a warning for those of you who may ever happen to find yourself to be an 11-year-old boy. Just if it just happens ever, you know, I don't know, time travels, gender changes, things like that, you know, quantum leap, whatever. But so if you ever happen to find yourself to be an 11-year-old boy, heed the next several hundred words you're going to hear. There's something that 11-year-old boys tend to do a lot of. That, yes, you must have been an 11-year-old boy at one point. We're all our 11-year-old boy in some way, but yes, masturbation. Well, if you happen to be an 11-year-old boy who happens to be in the urge to masturbate, which is pretty much continually, you may find yourself wondering, why do girls get all the great toys? You know, girls get some pretty awesome toys. They've got things that have got batteries and gears and pumping and thrusting and things, you know, stuff like that, you know. And, well, you might be wondering, well, what do I've got at my disposal that could really fit that bill? It has electrical motors and things like that. But when you're 11-year-old and you're in your bedroom at night, and you want to do something that's a little bit quieter, that might not alert your family to the fact that you are engaging in activity that they already know you do, you might have to look around and improvise. Improvising. Now, what do 11-year-olds have at their disposal? They do have toys. They have toys. They're not intended for what the 11-year-old boy might be thinking about, but they're there and they work. So an 11-year-old boy might be going around, oh, well, what are the best toys? The best toys have like at least, C batteries, maybe D batteries in them. Those are pretty good, right? Yeah, that's a pretty good start for an 11-year-old who has not been fully exposed to the wonders of 220. You know, so we'll look at C batteries. What do you have that has C batteries? Well, this is likely 1995, maybe 96. There's a certain transformer that has come out called Omega Supreme. Now, you may not be familiar, but Omega Supreme is a gigantic tank. He was a guardian of the Autobots, the good Transformers. Omega Supreme was about that big, about that big. Weighed in a good, 2.5, 3 pounds. and took at least C batteries. He went around on a track, because he was a tank. And he would go around and around and around, just crank things up. Oh, I should be over here, shouldn't I? There I am, right there. Right there. Oh, sorry, getting a little excited. Anyways, so, I'm not going to say 11-year-old boys excite me, but... Okay, I already said it. It's done, it's on the internet, it must be true. So, true. So, you have this Omega Supreme. Well, it's got gears, and it makes noise a little bit, not too much noise. It vibrates a bit, and it has some motion. Okay, well, we could probably make this work, can't we? Okay. So, 11-year-old boy begins to experiment with Omega Supreme, discovering how the wheels can be properly applied to locations for maximum effect. And everything is going swimmingly. This isn't bad. This is working pretty well. Until the 11-year-old boy is reminded that they have something relatively new to their anatomy. Pubic hair.
Totally saw that coming.
Pubic hair might be pulled into the gear system of Omega Supreme. And the boy may not realize it until it is followed quickly by the flesh of that is attached to said pubic hair. Suddenly, the boy finds himself and Omega Supreme inexorably connected, bound in some strange transhumanistic milieu of that was seen through the twisted lights of glasses of Pedo Bear. So I don't know, it was very little odd, but well, the 11-year-old boy will quickly, because they have some intelligence, turn off Omega Supreme, so it doesn't just continue to just chew and chew and chew on said flesh. But it's still a little late, because those gears have fully integrated his flesh into them. Well, you can't go all the way through Omega Supreme, and you don't have a screwdriver handy, and are you going to walk into the hallway with a 2.5-pound transformer hanging from your 11-year-old scrotum? I don't think you'd ever heard that before. I don't know. Well, Dave has. Dave, you've heard the story. And so how are you going to work this out? Well, you've got to find some way to force the gears back. Huh. Well, you need another tool. You need to improvise. Well, you don't have a screwdriver. And you need something that's thin enough to fit into the shaft. Well, oh wait, you have the force pike that Leia and Beaucharmer had that you'd gotten that same Christmas. Right, that could work. That could work. It has some tensile strength, and but it's thin enough, and you've used it to pick the suitcase lock, so you thought you were a super spy at one point. Okay, that could work. But you don't know where it is. It's in your room somewhere, and your room is covered with Legos and Transformers that didn't, pass muster like Omega Supreme, and G.I. Joes and other Star Wars figures. So you have to find where that is. So you have to crawl out of your bed, 3 hopping it. I'm not going to put the mic by my crotch for the next person who has to come up here. So I'll save you guys, maybe later. But you have to cradle this offending device who has betrayed you in this heinous fashion to your body while you crawl amongst the junk that your mom just lets you live in because she's also not going to clean it up. Until you finally rummage through, getting Legos stuck in your knees and finding, oh, no, that's just a lightsaber, but too thick. No, that's not going to work. Okay. Well, finally, you do. You find it. You dig it out. Great. Make your way back to the bed. And now you have to start the excruciating process of reversing the gears. Click by agonizing click. You slowly free yourself from this transformer that just stares at you, just daring you to go and do it anymore. And once you've totally freed yourself from this, you're made painfully aware of another aspect of biology. And that when a part of the body has been cut off from its blood supply for a while, when said blood supply returns, well, the nerves all re-engage. And suddenly, you're made even more excruciatingly aware of the damage that has just occurred to you. And you may, in fact, sit up in pain. And that's when you suddenly are reminded that you are in a bunk bed. Sometime later, you wake up with Omega Supreme in your lap, but no longer engaged fully. And you look down at him, and he's looking back up at you. And you look at the force pike in your hand that still is clung white-knuckled there. And this is where the cautionary part comes in, really, is really if the urge happens to do it again, it's just going to repeat itself once or twice or 3 or 4 times, something like that. So just, that's my story, and I'm sticking with it. So.
I can always count on Bill to make me feel like the normal one when I'm the only, one of 2 people in the room wearing a kilt, so. Yay. I have to point out, I will not point him out, but I am going to mention this because he just showed up and he is my former boss. And his name is Mike Nichols. He's a great guy, and he took part in what I have to think of as that very rare moment when you have a perfect comedic moment, and we kind of took part in this together. He may remember it or he may not. Excuse me. But we were sitting down working on the opposite computers of each other, and a mutual coworker who shall remain Russ, who is perfect, and he will happily tell you so at length. Russ came walking up and talked about this little conflict that he had about our head of HR, and I won't go into the details about it because it's not that fucking important. It's just that Russ is perfect, and he always wins, and he will tell you at length about it. And so he walks away, and I suddenly had this inspired moment. And actually, Jason will also find something very similar to this, because I think I actually stole this from you. I just turned around and I looked at Mike and I said, they say that Russ is one bad mother, and Mike's eyes light up and he goes, shut your mouth, I'm just talking about Russ, and we can dig it. I had an audience of 1, but it was my one perfect comedic moment, and it was awesome. And so with that, I will now pass the mic along to the great and mighty other big, bald martial artist who will be walking up on stage. Ladies and gentlemen, Mikey Taylor.
I don't need a straw. Thanks. I first of all want to say thank you for not putting the microphone down in your crotch. You're welcome. I felt like I was listening to a fucking Chuck Palahniuk book or something. I mean, Jesus Christ, it scared me. Okay, well, I wrote a little something new here, and hope you like it. I've heard that every good story should have a soundtrack. And there's a lot of stories that make up my life. There's one hell of a soundtrack that goes along with it. It's really diverse. So to quote one of my favorite characters in horror, Bill Moseley's Chop Top from Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2, music is my life. I really believed this when I was growing up. As I got older, I realized that music is a lie. It wasn't always that way though. When I was little, I learned that if you keep on dancing, you never grow old. That was my first nursery rhyme. It was Dance, Dance, Dance by Steve Miller. My mom wrote it in my baby book, so it has to be true. We didn't have a TV when I was young, so instead of watching cartoons or Sesame Street, I sat in front of the record player and looked at the album sleeves. Some of my favorites were the Cartoon Pig on Black Oak, Arkansas's High on the Hog, and all those little naked kids on the Houses of the Holy CD. Record fucking CDs. One of them stuck out amongst all of them, though. I would throw a fit until my mom would show me the baby. The inner sleeve of Jim Croce's Time in a Bottle had a photo of his infant son, AJ, trying to wear Jim's cowboy boots. I would stare at that picture while learning lessons of life, such as, you don't tug on Superman's cape, you don't spit into the wind, you don't pull the mask off the old Lone Ranger, and you don't mess around with Jim. Try to do that without singing it. Also, don't fuck around with Leroy Brown, because he's better than old King Kong, and he's meaner than a junkyard dog. This was an awesome playlist for a toddler. It was better than that "You Love Me, I Love You" shit. Now, as I got older, I started to find faults with all this music. Try as I may, I never could fly like an eagle. Fall on my ass was more like it. I guess I wasn't catchy enough for a song. No girl ever tried to light my fire, unless you're talking about that burning sensation when you pee. What the fuck is an In-A-Gadda-Da-Vida anyways? Besides like half an album and a really long-ass drum solo. These records from the 60s and 70s, they kind of shaped who I am. I kind of think that my obsession with Redhead stems from the Girl on the Cars Candy-O record. Looking at that made me feel really naughty, and I liked it. I got a little bit older, my musical world opened up, because I spent a lot of time at the local tavern checking out their jukebox. I can remember hearing the raging hits of the day. I thought that "Dirty White Boy" was a song I shouldn't be listening to because it must be dirty. The Pretenders would sing about being back on the chain gang. I thought it was a sequel to the song about the men that worked on the chain gang. Ooh, ah. I had one of my greatest misheard lyrics, one of the flubs you do when you try to sing along, to a song that I heard on that jukebox. I was singing along to Juice Newton's "Angel of the Morning" one day. Yeah. And the part of the song that says, "Just touch my cheek before you leave me," well, I belted out, "Just brush my teeth before you leave me." My mom died laughing, and then she explained to an embarrassed me what the song actually said. I kind of figured out what it meant, but you know what? It kind of sounds awkward, but the thought of someone caring enough to brush someone's teeth before they sneak out the door in the middle of the morning is sort of romantic. Nah, fuck it, it's awkward and fucking stupid. Now, growing up in the 80s was very confusing after having all the awesome music of the 70s around. There was a guy that looked like a girl, his name was Boy, asking me if I really wanted to hurt him. He also offered to tumble for me, whatever the fuck that means. And the band names kind of threw me for a loop as well. Why would a flock of seagulls try to run away if they want to get so badly when they could just fucking fly? Running didn't work, apparently. I longed for the day that someone would wake me up before they went to go-go. Nowadays, I just hope that I wake up before I have to go there. Music videos were introduced and my mind was blown. I remember how painful it was without them. Physically painful. You see, before MTV or VH1 or even Friday night videos, we had Solid Gold. Solid Gold was like Soul Train for white people. Well, the people would show up, they'd lip sync their song while the Solid Gold dancers kind of shimmied and shaked around in their skin-tight outfits. The problem was Solid Gold came on about dinner time at the Taylor household. Some song came on, I wanted to check it out, and I went to watch TV. My dad instructed me to come to dinner. To which I responded, "But I'm watching the Solid Gold dancers!" This is when I realized that my father had an amazing talent. He picked up the pepper shaker, which was just the tin can that pepper comes in, and winged it at my head with the speed of a Nolan Ryan fastball. It bounced off my head with a resounding thunk, and all of a sudden I didn't give two shits about the Solid Gold sluts or the fucking safety dance. But I was really glad that videos became popular because they would usually kind of showcase what the artist had in mind with the lyrics of the song, or maybe show the artist performing the song live, but sometimes it made no fucking sense. I mean, there's a guy who obviously doesn't look like he could fight, that jumps in the middle of a knife fight and tells two street gangs to beat it. And why in the fuck did everything he touched or walked on light up? I tried that shit all the time and it never worked for me. But that's okay, Michael. We love you and we know the kid was not your son. The puppets from the Land of Confusion really freaked me out. So did Lionel Richie's huge clay head in the Hello video. But now we're friends on Facebook. Seriously. I couldn't figure out what the fuck a Nazi on a motorcycle with a pipe wrench was doing chasing a girl and the guy that got pulled into a comic book, or what this had to do with a song that I couldn't understand the words for. Sledgehammer made me think Peter Gabriel was insane. Shock the Monkey didn't really help to shit much. As much as music videos fucked with my head, something else from the 80s would prove to really confuse me. There were a lot of movies that influenced me from back then, most of which I still love to this day, but three stand out as really fucking me up. Beat Street, Breakin', and Breakin' 2 Electric Boogaloo. I already wanted to be black because of Mr. T. Now I wanted to try to break dance. So my mom played along. She got me the electric breakdance tape with the not so easy to follow along poster of how to breakdance and a few books for Christmas. I have no rhythm or coordination. Instead of jamming on it, I sprained my neck trying to headspin and broke a table, and this ended my breakdancing career. Yeah, my dad broke my ass for that. Then one day it happened. A kid picked up a guitar, squeezed into some spandex, put on some eyeliner, and used a full can of Aquanet, and I was introduced to glam metal. I never went full on into the look. I had long hair and an earring. I used to read Circus Magazine and Rip Magazine to keep up on the latest news of my favorite musicians. And because I had no friends. Once again, the music had lied. No one was inviting me to come on Feel the Noise, to get high on a new thing, or to get naughty naughty. There were no offers to tease me, please me, and no one gave a shit if I was sporting a Woody. I sat alone in my room with my music. I went to school dances and stood against the wall to hear the music. Well, then one day at one of these dances, something happened. A girl danced with me, and she wanted to date me. She was a freshman. I was in 7th grade. Yeah, she wasn't really the most attractive girl in school. She was far from it, actually, but she was the best option I had at the moment. Our dating consisted of sitting together after lunch in the hallway for about 15 minutes, then shooting longing glances at each other between classes. Then I would meet her at her locker after school and we would walk to the bus together, take our separate bus rides home, call each other, and sit in silence because we had nothing to fucking talk about. After this amazing dating career, she dumped me. Well, I was crushed, but then it was my friend the music that came to my rescue. 4 minutes and 20 seconds of therapy. I played and rewound Every Rose Has Its Thorn for an entire weekend and cried into my pillow. I wouldn't eat, I wouldn't sleep. My parents wanted to commit me because that song was driving them fucking crazy. I played and rewound that song so much that it sounded like Bret Michaels had suffered a stroke sometime over the weekend. But Monday rolled around, and I was better. Somehow I was better, because I realized something. That was me they were talking about. I was that cowboy that sang that sad, sad song. And it was shit like that got my ass kicked a whole lot in school. So speaking about cowboys, I took another little journey into a genre that I had no fucking business getting involved with. This tubby fucker named Garth Brooks burst onto the scene and started making money hand over fist. Because of that, my friend convinced me that chicks dig cowboys. And cowgirls were the best fucks because they used to ride horses. I couldn't argue with that logic, so I saddled up and became a cowboy on the weekends. We would cruise O Street in Lincoln in his truck, decked out in our finest Wranglers and boots, and we weren't getting any chicks. He decided it was because of my boots. Those Rovers were all the rage, lace-up cowboy boots. So he borrowed a pair from somebody and gave them to me. We still weren't getting chicks, which I don't see how boots in a truck really matter. So he decided we had the jeans, we had the shirts, I wore a Wrangler ball cap. We didn't have one thing, the skull. He smoked, so I had to be the chewer. And nothing says sexy to a cowgirl than a guy with a wad of shit in his lip. We went cruising, I was chewing, the girls wouldn't come up to the truck even more than before. We didn't figure it out until we got home. See, I wasn't all that experienced with chewing skull, and it kind of made me sick to my stomach. So I had been spitting this tobacco vomit mix all down the side of his truck all evening. I went back to the hair bands. So I grabbed my Nelson t-shirt out of the closet. Yeah, Nelson. I can't live without your love and affection, Nelson. That shit doesn't work either. Apparently wearing a shirt with two long-haired blonde twins on it in high school when you go to a redneck high school doesn't work. Well, the group of freaks kind of felt sorry for me and took me in. I think the technical name for the group that they belonged to were Hessians. But they were the freaks, the geeks, the stoners, the metalheads, and they just felt sorry for me, apparently. They made me start listening to things like Iron Maiden and Megadeth, Metallica and Slayer, and a whole new world opened up to me. And it was around this time that a couple of bands that still are around the top of my all-time favorite list came about. One taught me to question everything. So I went around asking, what is it? And the obvious question was, it's it. That made life so fucking simple at that time. Faith No More showed me that doing your own thing and not really giving a shit was cool. Also, the fish at the end of the video flopping around, that was really awesome. The other band, they taught me a thing or two about not giving a shit. And I went to see them for the 5th time about a month ago as they said farewell to a fallen bandmate. Gwar doesn't give a shit either, and it's awesome. I still play The Real Thing and Scumdogs of the Universe without skipping a song, and I sing along to every word, and those are some of the only albums I can do that to. We're moving into the 90s. Something really big was happening. The pretty boy hair bands just weren't cutting the mustard anymore. There was a rawer, dirtier, stinkier sound coming out of Seattle. The grunge movement was kind of a modern hippie movement, but the catchphrase wasn't groovy or peace. It was, yeah. All the bands had their own way of saying it, and somehow it was cool. Growing your hair long was cool again, but washing it wasn't. I was a little fucking dirtball back then, and I was getting chicks. I believe the girls of the grunge movement were called granolas, and I thought they were hot as shit. This is probably one of the only musical genres that I identified with, and it's the one that nearly killed me on several occasions. First, it was a crowd that introduced me to drugs. From the first experiments where I thought I had OD'd on no-dos and mini-thins, to all the acid trips I took and beyond, I knew I was going to end up dead like some of my favorite musicians someday. Then my world exploded. Kurt Cobain was found dead. My favorite band ceased to exist, and I wanted to join him. I tried a few times, but it just wasn't meant to be. I was lost and alone, and I started to evolve into kind of a musical enigma. I still loved all the music from my past, even the country, and that's kind of what pulled me out of the funk. I didn't have to fit into any one music style. I could like what I liked and fuck everybody else. Maybe music had lied to me, but it was my life. It had let me down a few times, but if I took the best of the best, it'd keep me afloat. And I can actually remember a few times that music gave me a path to walk, gave me a voice, and actually saved my dignity. Now, like Henry Rollins doesn't lie. If he does, he does it loud enough and aggressive enough, so you better fucking believe him or he'll kick your ass. Rollins is the one that led me to this stage, and that's not a letdown. Well, maybe for you, but not for me. It's very surprising to say, but Meatloaf saved my dignity. I was on this first date with this chick I met online, and We had some sushi and headed out to find a band we wanted to see. We walked into the wrong bar, which was really small and dead silent when it hit me. I had the sushi shits. I tried to convince her to sit down and have a drink while we decided where to look for the band next, but she denied me. So I just leveled with her, and I said, I have to go use the restroom. I blew that fucker up. Luckily, there was a jukebox right on the outside of the bathroom door that was blaring away. But when the song went in, I could hear the conversations in the bar, so I knew they could hear me exploding. So I'd pinch it off. Until the next song started, I'd let go again. This went well until the music stopped, and the bar fell silent again. I was nearly ready just to open the door and throw a 5 out and say, play some fucking music! When I heard the opening strains to Paradise by the Dashboard Lights. I knew that I had about 11 minutes to finish this mess that I had made. And just as it was ending, I sauntered out of the bathroom to finish my date, who should have been calling a cab by this point. But she's standing there all pissed off by the front door where I left her. And I walked up and very nonchalantly said, so shall we? She rolled her eyes, we went, and she humored me by watching one set of the band and then realizing that she had to go to work that day. Well, my date may have went down the shitter, but Meatloaf let me walk out with my head held high. The only genre of music that has never lied to me or attempted to bullshit anybody is punk music that I love. First time I ever heard it, I was hooked. They fully admit the world sucks and life is tough, but they give you choices. Either shut up and deal with it, or do something to change it. Or as the Ramones say, go down in the basement and sniff some glue. Now you can see I got a lot of diversity in the soundtrack of my life. Once you sort out the bullshit, music does become your life. It gives you an identity. It gives you a personality. You owe music. You owe bands you like the respect enough to let them know that you like them. So go to their shows. Buy their music, dance, applaud, and let them see you having a good time. Let others know what you like. Turn somebody onto a band they've never heard. It's not like when you're a little kid and somebody plays some fucked up song, you have to clap to be polite. Love what you love and let everyone know you love it so you can hear more of it. But if you hate a band, let everybody you know you hate them, or else shit like Nickelback happens. My name is Mikey and I approve this message.
I have that kind of odd musical moment in history in my life. As a kid, this will most likely date me really, really well. One of the first gifts I remember getting as a kid was a AM transistor radio, and I used to like go to sleep with it playing, you know, as I was just like rolling out. And there was this wonderful station in Chicago called WLS that had the coolest fucking playlist ever. No radio station I have seen in a long time has had this playlist. You could sit and like, I would always be sung to sleep by like Elton John, Led Zeppelin, Joni Mitchell, Stevie Wonder, just this incredible mix of music that you just don't see on a lot of radio stations. But one of the things I noticed is that my understanding of Led Zeppelin changed at a certain point. Round about the same point that I started, shall we say, smelling like a goat, growing hair in places I'd never had. And there is that opening to Black Dog, you know, hey, hey, mama said the way you move, gonna make you sweat, gonna make you groove. When you're like 6, that's the opening line to a song. You have no clue what that's about. When I hit about 11, I'm still listening to that album. I just got my own copy of it. But suddenly, all of a sudden, there was a brand new sensation that went with that song. Yeah, very much. I wanted to have my really, really intense Omega Supreme moment, but I don't have Bill's level of sexual engineering creativity. Thank God. I just kind of had to pass my music moment along, kind of get into a interesting, sexy sort of groove, because the next person that we have on is the, still talking, is the always amazing Efemily. Who I might add, there are a few female friends of mine who have come to refer to her as a role model, and she's like, dear God, please no.
Honestly, that kind of scares me a little bit. Well, first of all, thank you to Dominicat for giving me my leather bracelets, just to at least model tonight, because, you know, unlike the rest of me, I have very skinny wrists, so. Yes, it's a fat joke. I told it, you can laugh. Funny story that I'm going to be telling is just how this all rolls back around. We started off with a masturbation story, then we went into music, and then somehow Dave was kind enough to bring it back to where I could talk about sex and dogs, but they're not really related. Well, they kind of are, but not in the way you're probably thinking, because I'm not that wrong. How many of you are pet owners, dog owners specifically? So we got a few people that might be able to empathize. How many of you saw the post on the Family Uncensored Facebook page the other day that said my dog is could be a good guard dog?
Yeah.
We're going to tell that story.
Yay.
We're going to tell two stories, basically how both of my dogs now have cock-blocked me. I hate those fuckers. I got two dogs. They're both rescue dogs. One of them is Dodger. She is a very fat beagle. I call her a bagel because she's very, very round. And then I have Moxie, who is a Heinz 57. When I get really bored, I'll sit there and look at her and go, I wonder what Moxie could be. Because she's got like the Doberman or the Rottweiler eyebrows. She's the size of a black lab, real long tail, very skinny, very long legs, very webbed feet, and the black and white spots on her chest like she's a border collie. No idea what she is, but she's very sweet. But she looks and sounds kind of mean when she wants to be. So these are the two beasts that I have at home. A few years ago, I somehow, in true style, managed to get a staph infection in a shaving nick on my right knee. I swore that I was not going to be the idiot in the ER on New Year's Eve getting a shaving nick looked at. So I went to the doctor, ended up breaking a linkage cable in my car, which this was just a series of events, all of which I think I have somewhat written down on the blog. But we're getting to the point where I want to tell the story about how I was living in a house with stairs, and when you've got a knee that's swelled up like you wouldn't believe, you can't really do those very well. So I asked my ex-husband and my folks if one of them could take one of the dogs so I wouldn't have to go up and down the stairs quite so much. And luckily, they were both able to oblige, and I could just hobble along when I needed to. And so it was a few weeks after I had gotten Dodger, the beagle, back, and I hadn't had a chance to go out to my folks' house because they live all the way out by Hummel Park. And frequently, as a kid, I was accused of being one of the escaped albinos. I have no idea where that came from, but so I hadn't had a chance to go out there and get her back yet. And now Dodger we'd had for a year alone before Moxie ever came around. So I didn't think there was any big deal. You know, I would go to work, put her in the kitchen, come home, let her out, do my thing. We were good. So one night, this is about 3 days after I'd gotten her back and she was alone in the house during the day. One night, I came home, I let her out, played with her, fed her a little bit, and then went back out that evening on, I don't know if you'd call it a date, but I went out with a gentleman, and we were going to go see, I believe it was Tron Legacy at Cinedigm. And so, you know, they serve booze, and they serve food, both of which make me happy. And there was some pawing going on, and eventually we decided, okay, well, you know, let's kind of go back to your place and see what kind of goes on. Hey, yeah, how's that go? And so we did. And I said, okay, well, you know, before we get too much into this, I don't want to have to clean up pee. I'm just going to shove the dog outside and she can stay out there. As I go to get into the kitchen, because I've got one of those baby gates, which this fat-ass beagle, 40 pounds of beagle, has managed to climb over one of the honeycomb baby gates. I have seen her do it. I never would have believed it otherwise. So I got one of these that was just, there was no hand holds or claw holds or whatever magic holds she had. And yet somehow she had reached under this baby gate that had maybe this much space underneath it and torn up the carpet down to the subfloor. She went through the brand new carpet. I mean, it was maybe 2 years old. Brand new carpet, through the extra thick doggy-proof pad into the subfloor. And I'm looking at this dog going, you'd make a lovely shoe. Oh, we may talk, because she's still in the doghouse. Damn bladder infection, I'm telling you. So, I love that dog. I hate that dog. Anybody want a beagle? A bagel? Yeah. Good with locks. So if you have a Pomeranian, you know, that'd be kind of cute, actually. Get a gecko and have capers. Yeah, I could do this for a while. So I'm sitting here looking at this dog going, bitch, I'm trying to sell this house, because I was at the time. And I'm thinking, how am I going to get anybody to buy this house with this carpet torn up like this? And then, as I'm thinking this, my companion kind of nudges me going, not that too. So, needless to say, I was exceedingly angry, and suddenly the mood just kind of went like that. It was gone, and I had to fix carpet instead of fixing my carpet or getting my carpet its fix or whatever you want to call it. So yeah, I got cock-blocked by my beagle. Last night we had something similar happen. This was interesting. Any of you ever had a dog just have their nose up on the side of the bed going, what you doing? Or at the door going, I hear noises. You don't normally make those noises. Well, this was a little bit more so. Adrian, the guy I'm seeing, and I were laying around watching TV, and he reaches back, not looking, thinking he was gonna, I don't know, squeeze my knee or something. Well, that's not a knee. I was a little man in a boat. So, we visited Florida Everglades pretty quickly, and it was getting real interesting, let me tell you. And, well, I'm not a quiet woman. There was some moaning and some groaning and some showing off even happening, and I'm really enjoying it. And it was all manual stimulation at the time. I've got him in one hand, he's got me in the other, and all of a sudden, he goes soft. I'm going, what's going on? And then I see it. There's my dog at the edge of the bed, and she just goes, woof, woof. And she moos. This dog moos. I swear to you, it's the funniest thing I've ever heard. And the next thing I know, he goes, oh God, stop licking my neck! I hate that dog. After we had both stopped laughing, he gets up to go get some water. And I hear from out in the kitchen, no, you may not smell my penis! Get away from me! Because the dog is about this tall. If animals can talk, don't talk to mine. Or maybe if you're that kind of person, you can talk to mine. I'm kind of afraid that, you know, the monsters that you think about it when you're little and you leave an appendage hanging over the edge of the bed and they come and grab your hand. I'm kind of afraid of Moxie coming up and licking one of ours. Is that animal abuse? I'm not quite sure. But animals have kind of played a big role in my life. When I was little, even in elementary school and junior high, I actually fox hunted. And I, being the brat that I was the kid that asked for a pony and actually got one. But when I did fox hunt, I would frequently get the ground tester award, which pretty much means you fell off. And that, what was hilarious about that is that I got it frequently. However, I never fell off the horse until it completely stopped. Go over the jump, hang on for dear life, all of a sudden the horse has stopped, thud. It was a pattern, what can I say? But we've had dogs growing up, I think, ever since I can remember. I don't remember not having a dog. And we've had a standard poodle, a Great Pyrenees, a couple of Jack Russells, and my folks even have a beagle as well. And each of those dogs has got such a personality. And it's so funny. The Great Pyrenees, if you're not familiar, looks very much like a Saint Bernard. I mean, huge, furry, you could knit another dog out of what one grooming would net you. And we also had Smudge, the Jack Russell, who was about this big. And I don't remember what cartoon it was, but there's one out there where there is a bulldog with a bowler hat askew stomping around, and he's got the little dog bouncing around going, yeah, we're gonna do it, yeah, you tell him. That's what those two were like. And it was hilarious because Claude couldn't catch him, but he would try. And Smudge would just run circles, and it was the funniest thing I've ever seen. They managed to catch a raccoon in the backyard at my folks' house. Now, of course, this is when my parents are out of town, and I have been tasked with watching the house. And I let them out, and they find this raccoon in the middle of the day under one of the bushes in the backyard. Claude kind of has the right idea. He goes after the raccoon at the neck. Smudge, God love him, went after the tail. And I'm just kind of saying, buddy, that's not the dangerous end typically. Might want to rethink that. But this poor raccoon, I think it ended up having distemper, so the Humane Society had to come out and capture it, and I'm pretty sure they ended up putting it down. But this poor raccoon would not leave. I mean, I would get them in the house and make sure nobody was bitten or anything like that, and I would think, okay, well, it's been several hours, I'll let him back out. Nope, same thing. Keystone Cops, they'd just patrol the yard till they found it. Raccoon would go up the tree, I'd have to get him, corral him back in the house. It was just, and this is all by myself, and I'm maybe 14, 15 years old at the time. Boy, eventually what we had to do is, I had called the Humane Society, and they said, no, you'll have to trap the raccoon yourself. And I thought, this doesn't sound right. So I called back a few hours later, and they said, oh, yeah, we'll send somebody out. And they did, and they came out and they found the house, and the tree was too tall that this raccoon had climbed, that they couldn't stick that noose on a stick up high enough to catch him. So we had to let the Humane Society guy in the house, and by this time my folks were home. We had to let him in the house, open the window in the room that's right by that tree. He had to climb out. My mom had him by the belt, and I had my mom by the waist. So we're sitting here, he's hanging out there trying to get this rabid, distemper-ridden raccoon. And I'm sure if there had been candid camera, this would have been comedy gold. Because my mom is not a large woman. She's maybe 5'2". She's a little Jewish dynamo. And you think I'm feisty. Don't cross my mother. She's postmenopausal, so love you, Mom. But the last thing I'll tell you about the animals that I've known, my folks have got another Jack Russell by the name of Daphne. She's a female. And what's interesting, and maybe a little bit morbid, is that both of their Jack Russells were bred by the Carhartts, who happened to be the local abortion provider. Those two things to me, they're at opposite ends of the spectrum, and I kind of appreciate that morbid humor in that. But Daphne looks very much like a rat terrier, and she has one ear that is constantly at attention. So she's a little bit like the Flying Nun, and she is a hunter. And she also quite enjoys swimming. Literally. My folks, again, I was the spoiled brat that did have the pool in the backyard, so this dog, you cannot keep her out of the water. She will find a way in there if you were swimming, and she will make a flying leap into the water, and this scared us to death the first time she did it. And we were running, swimming for her, trying to get her out of the water, picked her up out of the water, put her on the side of the pool, splash, right back into the water. Now, she would swim laps along with my dad, or if my mom was out there in the lounger, come out, swim up to you, sit right on your lap. Just happy as can be. And so every now and then she'd get water in her ear. And you'd see her, you know the doggy butt scooch when they got worms or something? She would do the doggy ear scooch. So she'd be dragging her ear along the carpet or along the grass. And one afternoon, one summer, we were standing in the backyard and she starts doing this. And we're thinking, oh, well, she must have been swimming earlier and got water in her ear. Oh, she'll work it out. She'll be okay. Just keep an eye on it, make sure it doesn't get infected. Well, next thing I know, my dad and I had turned our backs. And we hear this squeak. Okay, what is this? Turn around. And Daphne has got a mole in her mouth. She wasn't scratching water out of her ears. She was like using sonar to find a mole underground. And it looked like World War I back there because she had dug this mole out of the ground. And that screeching was its death throes. She shook it and killed it. And this dog is something else. There is not a thing that will keep her penned up if she doesn't want to be. She is the Houdini of the dog world. And more than once, my mom loves to garden. They've got a large yard. And during the summer, when it's not too bad, they'll leave the dogs out back. And mom will be, let's say, in the front yard weeding or putting down mulch or something that people with green thumbs do. And more than once, she has turned around to see Daphne trotting through the yard, or she'll throw a weed behind her and Daphne will come up and give it back to her because it's a game. Wait a minute, how did you, oh. So the back fence is just covered, covered with bricks and anything, any debris that they can find to plug these dog holes. So it's looking a little bit, again, like World War I back there. But she's got this favorite spot where she would like to dig out. And over the years, it's grown to be somewhat of a compost heap, because it's anything, it's sticks, bricks, any gravel from repaving anything in the area, whatever. And it's even fenced off with one of the short little garden fences like this that's supposed to keep bunnies. I don't know what it's supposed to do other than look cute. But so there's this compost heap here. And one evening my mom went out back to let the dogs back in and was whistling for them. And in came two of them. In came the beagle and the male Jack Russell, and there was no Daphne. Okay. So they looked around the house because, it's a sizable house, easy for dogs to get lost. We had Smudge at one time fell asleep on the waterbed, and because it was not quite full, when he was laying on the mattress under the covers, because they like to burrow, there was not a lump to be seen on the bed. So they spent probably 4 or 5 hours trying to find this dog that was just taking a nap. So they thought, well, maybe the dog's in the house. Well, so they searched the house top to bottom, no Daphne. And they start getting worried. So they drive around the neighborhood, because usually, they'll hear the car and the calling, and they'll pop out and say, okay, I'm done gallivanting, let's go home. But this didn't happen. So, okay, they came back home, started to get really worried. Where is this dog? And they walk the fence line again. And as they get close to the spot where Daphne likes to dig out, they hear this faint whimpering. And they're thinking, uh-oh, where is this dog? Is she stuck, or where did she go? And the closer they listened, the more they realize it's coming from the compost heap. The dog had tried to dig out and gotten stuck. And one of the things about Jack Russells is that they are bred to go to ground, meaning they will go in after the prey and stay there and hang out. However, normally they don't get stuck. Daphne did. So she's been underground, wedged under perhaps tree roots or something like that for several hours. And my folks are sitting here going, all right, how are we going to get our dog out? We have to dig up our dog. They go out to the garage and get some, gardening implements. And they get a trowel and a shovel and a pitchfork. And they're throwing this debris off the top of the compost heap. And as they're digging around, they start to see this little tail sticking up out of the debris, and she's wiggling a little bit more and crying a little bit more, and the only image, and I wasn't there to see it, but I got to hear all about it, the only image that I have in my mind is when they finally were able to free her by digging her out of the ground, is that of a farmer with like a potato plant or something like that, and it being, the potato plant on the top, and then it turning into a dog's tail with this wiggling, squirming, atomic fireball of energy that is the Jack Russell Terrier. And she surprisingly hasn't dug out since then. Pretty much, yeah. Only she didn't need to lose the weight, she just needed to lose the energy. So, anyway, those are my dog stories. So, thank you very much.
And with that, let's give it about 15 minutes. There's a donation cup over there for the firefighters in Colorado and for our dear friend Jody. And there's a bar over there. I'm reasonably certain some of you might find your way over there. And we'll see you in a little bit.